Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole, founder of Homework for Kids and mother of two. Homework for Kids is the newest online community dedicated to helping parents connect with K through 12 educators and tutors. We donate a portion of our profits to kids' educational charities because we believe that every child deserves a quality education. We are continuing on our webinar series. I hope you have been enjoying our free webinars. You can go to our website, homeworkforkids.com, to view the previous ones. And today I am thrilled to introduce Charlotte Walker. She is a teacher with 20 years experience. I'm going to pull up a bio right here for you guys and share my screen so we can learn a little bit more about Charlotte. See? Here we go. Charlotte, let me see, is, and I've ruined my screen. She graduated from, she is starting this year as a gifted resource teacher. This is her 20th year as an educator. She graduated from Radford University with a bachelor's in elementary studies with a concentration in history and science. After 15 years of teaching, she received her gifted endorsement through VCU and taught at Free Chop Gifted Center. And let me see. She taught in Richmond, the Gifted Zone Center. She taught for Richmond Public Schools for 3 years, various elementary schools in Henrico, as you can see. She has taught kindergarten, 2nd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And she is excited to bring her knowledge of gifted education to Henrico students of all ages. She believes in developing all facets of lifelong learner with, which include collaboration, cooperation, and organization while working on social and emotional skills. When she's not spending time helping students with academic enrichment, she hangs out with her family. She has an amazing family, by the way, and friends, and she is extended family as well, just so you know. And she's very thankful for her husband, James, and her 2 daughters, who truly make life an adventure worth living. So true. We are all envious of your family photos online, just so you know. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Charlotte. So welcome, Charlotte.
Hello. This is exciting. This is my first webinar, so bear with me if I stutter over my words just a little bit. It's a little more comfortable when I get to talk to students who are very young and maybe aren't as judgy. But I will not judge
at all. No
one of my favorite times of the year is back to school night. And being able to meet families. Like Nicole said, I have been teaching for quite some time, and given the different grade levels that I've taught and the different types of schools that I've been in inner city schools, schools in the far east end of Henrico County, as well as schools over in the west end. So if we think of that for people who obviously don't know Henrico County or the surrounding counties of Richmond, that goes, various social economic classes in. So it's really been able to give me a very broad overview. But the one thing that I have noticed that it does not change is the relationship between a teacher, the child's family, and the student is what is going to make that year successful. I know that right now, my children start, I have an 8 and a 5-year-old, so one going into 3rd grade and one going into kindergarten. And they just recently got the names of their elementary school teachers. So they're super excited. And I know that those phone calls are being anticipated all over. And, parents right now are asking themselves, okay, did I get the new teacher? Did I get the one fresh out of college? Does my kid have the cool teacher? Does my kid have the one that everyone says is me? Or do I have that old one that's getting ready to retire? So that's the question that everybody is asking themselves right now. And then the other thing that's going on is, have you stalked your teacher on Facebook? Have you called around on the phone tree to get the 411 on that teacher? I mean, that's even sitting at the pool the other day, I literally could hear the conversation of, who did your child get? Did you get, oh, you got that person? Oh, I looked them up on Facebook. They're related to so-and-so. So that's obviously, the catch of what's going on right now. But again, I know that all of that is because parents are excited to get their kids back into school. That is a time of the year that helps families reset their clocks and kind of plan their routines. And, for me, I know January 1st is the new year, but the first day of school is my new year. My brain doesn't work January to December. It works like September to June. And now August, I should throw in August. But so we're here today to really talk about how all three of those parts can come together to make a really solid whole and to allow your child to have a successful year. So I have found that the 4 facets that have really helped a year be successful for your student and for yourself are: first, honesty, respect, timeliness, and organization. And so I'm going to kind of touch on each one of those as I go about and talk to parents how they can begin to, either, for example, myself with a kindergartner, begin to develop that relationship, or with my 3rd grade child, set a new year, because maybe your child's year the previous year wasn't great, or whatever the fit was. We are still trying to recover from a pandemic, and I realized that the 5th graders that just left, that are rising 6th graders now, their last normal school year was the 2nd grade. So when they entered into my classroom as 5th graders, they hadn't had a normal year since the 2nd grade. And when you think of a 2nd grader and a 5th grader, those two students are very different. So for many of our kids, our kindergartners, 1st graders, and 2nd graders, they never had a normal school year. So even for parents, things are not normal. Like, you begin to know, like, okay, well, I used to do that, but then we went virtual, but now we're trying to retrain ourselves to go back to what normal kind of is. So again, we're going to talk about honesty, respect, timeliness, and organization, which I think will help you have a successful year. So the teacher's role for the school year is to make a difference and help every student in their classroom, no matter if they're the newest teacher on the block or they're the one who's retiring in a year. That is their main goal. That is why we do what we do. We all know that we did not go into it for the money. The wool was not pulled over our eyes. We love working with kids, and that's why we do what we do. And then the other part of that is for your teacher at the beginning of the year. They will determine where your child is, and they do that through various testing, either in small groups or one-on-one. But as the year progresses, they will set a plan for your child specifically to know where they are and where they want them to be by the end of the school year. And it is crucial that you become a part of that plan as well. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that. As the parent or guardian of this student, you have sent us your best. And we know that each child comes with lots of different things. But you sent us your very best, and your child is the most important to you. Now, we've got maybe 20, given what's going on in teacher shortages, you might have 30. But we know that as you have sent us yours, we're going to do our best to make sure that your child's needs are met. And the best way for us to do that is for you to know your child, because you do know what you sent us, and to be their best advocate. And each time that role as an advocate changes, whether you have a kindergartner or a 5th grader. You as an advocate for that kindergartner or 1st grader is when you really have to speak up for them. As a 2nd and 3rd grader, you begin to foster them speaking up for themselves. And then as a 4th and 5th grader, you allow them to speak up for themselves and to become responsible for their academic success, because truly they're the ones who are doing it. You're helping behind the scenes and facilitating it, but they're the ones there every single day making it work. So as you progress, through elementary school and you set them up for that pattern of success, by the time they head off to middle school or high school, they know how to speak up for themselves, to talk to their teachers, and to, set their own short and long-term goals so that they're successful. So when we talk about communication, there's so many ways that we can communicate. When I was in elementary school, our newsletter was like on a ditto machine and posted on our refrigerator, right? And that's pretty much the only way that we probably got information from school. But now, because we're so connected in so many different ways, long gone is probably the paper newsletter. Now you probably get a digital one, which is super helpful, and you can print it out and put it on your refrigerator. Teachers have blogs. There's communication apps like Blooms or Remind. Obviously, you have email. And the other thing that's super important are parent-teacher conferences. I know for me, I allow any parent to conference with me, whether you have a straight A student or your student is struggling, because I think that's an important time, even if it's 15 minutes, for a teacher and a family to be able to sit down and communicate one-on-one. So, don't think that because your child is just sailing through and it's, everything's fine, that you don't need to meet with your child's teacher. Now, it's okay if it doesn't fit, but just know that that is also available to you. And you can do that throughout the year. You don't have to wait till parent-teacher conferences. You can, request a meeting with a teacher to discuss your child's needs. So when the communication, however they choose to send it, it could be coming from the school, which if it's coming from the school, they're probably giving you everything from school to classroom updates, SOL content, specific dates that may be going on with tests, online calendars or agendas. I know many counties, the county that I work in, we have an online platform. So many schools have paper agendas that they give to students, but then you also have an online calendar where you can help your student put things together and organize themselves. As students in the higher grades begin to manipulate that system a little bit more, they probably know it better than their teachers do. It's a great tool for you to use that paper agenda with your child at home and show them how it's used, and then encourage your older child, maybe in 4th or 5th grade, to access the online platform that they have so that they can begin to have it at school and at home. And plus you can access both, really, but you always have access to their online platform, whether it's Canvas or Schoology. There's probably a ton of them out there. But so these forms of communication serve as a way for families to have constant communication for that school. And the other thing that's really important for us to understand as parents is that teachers put a lot of time and effort into whether the email or the newsletter or the blog that they send you. An amazing amount of energy goes into that. And as a parent, it truly is our responsibility to take time to read it and to actually read it, not breeze through it and, just kind of mull over it and just go, oh, okay, well, that's kind of in my background. I know that. Like, actively sit down with your family, especially if your teacher is giving you dates, and go through your home calendar and put those things onto the calendar that you have, whether it's your paper calendar, your phone calendar, your big old calendar that you have smack dab in the laundry room or the kitchen. That's really important because the teacher has taken so much time to put that together for you for it to be a helpful tool. And when you take the time to really read it, oftentimes you find that you have to communicate less with your child's teacher because you're up to date on what's going on in your child's classroom. And I think also it a lot of times prevents those last minute emails. So that brings us to the question of, well, if I'm emailing my child's teacher, am I emailing them enough, or am I not emailing them, or am I emailing them too much? So if you know that your child is academically doing well and they seem to be coming home routinely with all the things that they need, and their agenda, I say, is clean, meaning there isn't a note every other day from the teacher, then you can pretty much rely on the regular communication that your teacher is putting out. If you know that your child is getting a decent amount of notes, or maybe their grades aren't as great, that does elicit sometimes where you need to go ahead and begin that communication with the teacher and keep it open. I think one of the biggest things, I'm kind of jumping around, but one of the biggest things when communicating via email with a parent or with a teacher is to take a moment to write the email, let it sit, and then send it, right? Because sometimes something's happened in school that we don't know exactly what's happened. We've got a lot of questions, and we immediately kind of like jump out of our skin, and everything comes out of it in these words. And then we send it and we go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I sent that email. So then we receive it on the other end. And there's sometimes we don't even know where this email is coming from, because we don't see everything. As much as we'd like to think we have eyes in the front, on the sides, and on the back, we don't. And so when you ask yourself, how often am I emailing? The big question is, how am I emailing? When I email a teacher, know that this person is going to respond to you. But right now, they're probably teaching your kid math. Or maybe they're out on the recess field. Or maybe they're squeezing in that bathroom break because they haven't gone to the bathroom since 6 o'clock that morning. So you're going to get a response. I promise you will get a response. But they have to, especially if it's an issue that's, come up throughout the day, they've got to find out, they got to do the detective work to figure out what's going on and be able to answer your question. So when you do email a teacher, make sure that you ask a question. Don't go on a rant. Ask a question. Let us know what it is that you need. And then we will happily find out the information for you and send it your way. Check your email. Hold on. If you know that it's a heated situation, reread it and then send it. But it is okay to email often, because we know this is your kid, right? This is the person that you're taking care of and that you want to make sure is successful. And we don't mind your emails, because that's how we can communicate with you. And honestly, emailing is the best way for a teacher to email or to communicate with a parent. It's not the phone, because we don't really have easy access. Most of us don't have phones in our classrooms. And so being able to have that constant dialogue with a parent, and also the other thing too is for safety reasons on both ends, it's written down. So allow that teacher to respond to you in a timely manner. Usually within 24 hours, you should get a response. Even if it's, I'm not quite sure, let me find out for you. You know that they've heard you, right? And that you're waiting for a response because they're gathering information for you. So if you know that your kid is doing okay, then use the regular communication that your teacher is putting out. If you know that your child needs a little extra help and a check-in, maybe once a week, that's okay, whether it's behavioral or academic. Now, behaviors, they can kind of be fixed a little bit faster than sometimes academic growth. So checking in with your child's teacher, whether it's email or maybe you all set up like a little calendar and know that there's, like many of us know that sometimes they'll get like little green faces on a calendar that'll come home. Oftentimes that might be great for one child, but that doesn't work for another. So just working with your child's teacher to figure out what is the best. Does it really help for my child to see that they're behaving themselves and doing well? Or do I need to check in with the teacher every few days to see how their day is going? Because they don't need to necessarily see it. The child doesn't need to see it. Because sometimes that actually sets kids off more than not knowing it. So I think I got, hang on a second. Let me just double check, make sure I've kind of hopped from one place to the other. So I just want to make sure that covered some things. Yeah. The other thing that's really important, I think, that we need to understand is that when we are getting those emails or giving those emails, that the respect part goes for, we're going to try and give you as much information as a teacher can give you. That might be when a test is, when a quiz will be, field trips, things like that, a spelling test, what are the words? Those typically go home in folders or agendas. And then that way, if you're putting those important dates into your calendar, then that saves you from that last minute email on a Thursday night asking you, what is my kid's spelling words? Right? Because we might not get to that email. And then that leaves that parent in the lurch. And then that kind of leaves the kid in the lurch too, right? Because now they've got this test the next day, but you're not hearing back from the teacher. Well, maybe it's 5 o'clock and that person is, out to dinner with their family or at their second job or just, out and about with life. They're not connected to their email. So really allowing yourself to be a little bit more prepared as well. If your teacher is giving you that regular communication, then that will lessen the amount of emails that you have to send. And also respecting the chain of command, because your child is with that teacher majority of the day. Like, let's say not the principal, right? You've got 20 kids in a class. That teacher knows those kids very, very well. You may have 500 kids in a school. The principal might not know that child as well. And they definitely don't know everyday in and out situations. So when something arises, use the teacher as your first line of communication. Don't necessarily go over that person's head, right? Send the email to the teacher and say, hey, there's a situation on the recess field. I'm not sure that you are aware of what happened. This is what I got from my child at home. Could you check into this for me? It's all about how we kind of put it out there, right? I mean, that's really the most important thing, which I think that's where the respect piece comes in, because we both want to be respected. All three parts of, I call it a triangle. And I always say that there's 1/3 of this triangle that is a responsibility for each person. So you've got the teacher, the parent, and the student. And a lot of times the parent is the one who feels like they're kind of 2/3 of the equation. But really, if we allow that child to be that solid 1/3, then I feel like the triangle is a lot stronger, because then both the teacher and the parent are really supporting that kid in two different environments. And then they're able to kind of come to school and put it all together. So when we think about that role, that triangle, and we think about the role of the teacher. So the teacher is going to create a safe environment for your child. And given the climate of what we are dealing with now, probably different than when many of us were children and going off to school ourselves, we weren't thinking about hide and locks and having to do, the worst drill that we probably did was like a tornado or an earthquake drill. So when you think about everything that goes on in the day of the life of a teacher, that one of the key things is safety, especially the first week of school. We love for the kids to have a great time for the first week of school. We get to know them. But the most important thing on any teacher's mind is, did they get home safely? And while they were here, did they eat? And those are the two most important things for the first week of school. All those other routines and the academics, they'll come, but safety is our main goal, because we want everybody to be in an environment where they're safe and they feel loved and comfortable, so that they can really learn and explore and grow while sharing all this information and providing a place where they can monitor your child's growth and share that information with you. So that's the role of the teacher. The role of the parent is to support the teacher and the child. And one way that a parent can support their child best is to always use positive language around your student when you're discussing school and your child's teacher. There are always going to be things that arise, whether you don't agree with something. I know I had an issue with my child's teacher last year, but she and I were able to communicate effectively, and it wasn't through an email though. It did really truly require a phone call, and that's sometimes okay. And I think the reason we know that we need to not do an email and a phone call is because the way that your tone or your compassion, you don't catch that in an email, but you can definitely hear it in a phone call. So phone calls are still a very important part of that parent-teacher relationship. And ours had to go to that next step. We had to have a call. But despite any issues that I had with my child's teacher, my child always thought that I thought her teacher was fantastic. And she was a great teacher. It was just, there was something that kind of came up in the classroom that as a teacher myself, I would not have allowed. And so I had questions, and I did have to ask those questions, and I did have to go, I didn't necessarily get the answers that I wanted, and I did have to go to the principal. But because I had already talked to the teacher and then I was talking to the teacher, I followed that chain of command correctly, because it gave that teacher knowledge to know, like, okay, I am concerned about something that's going on in my child's classroom. You and I have talked, and now I need to go to the next person because I got to know what's going on, because I'm not in those four walls during the day. And so always having a positive outlook for your child's school and for your child's teacher is really important, because if you are at home and you are saying negative things about your child's teacher, then that child is going to automatically feel that same way about their teacher. And that teacher-student relationship is really important. And unfortunately, we as parents can easily, deteriorate that relationship. Always, always, always check backpacks and folders and emails in a timely manner. When I was first teaching and I didn't have kids, I would get so annoyed that I would send home that Tuesday folder and ask for it to be back on Thursday, and it wouldn't come back on Thursday, and I would get super annoyed. And I'm like, I don't understand. Why can't this folder just come home? Well, now I have kids, and I totally understand why that folder doesn't come home or come back to school, because it's gone here, it's gone there. You were going to swimming, you were going to soccer, you were going to dance. It's chaos, right? But again, it's that setting up that routine and letting your child know that when you get off the bus, or when you get out of daycare, or when you get home and I pick you up from the carpool, we have to check folders, we have to check backpacks, we need to empty out your lunchbox. We need to have a little conversation about your day. How was your day? Was it a good day? It wasn't a good day. What happened? So building that relationship of I as a parent, I want to know what happened during your day, because you and your teacher, those other 2/3, what happened, but I want to know too.
And Charlotte, can
yes.
I bring you back to and you were talking about that relationship back when you first started communicating so that they have a successful year. Those four, you said, started with honesty, respect. Will you touch back on those again for me, those four elements that you said?
So the last two, so honesty, respect, timeliness, and organization. And so with the organization piece, the way that you can support your child and teacher at home is to set up that routine. That's super important, because that allows your child to be organized when they're at school. They're bringing back that folder. There's not that miscommunication, because if you know that you've got to check that every day, whether it's empty or full, if you put that into your daily routine, and even as a teacher, I expect it, but I have a hard time doing it at home. So I have to force myself to make sure that I do it, because by the time I get home, we're cooking dinner, we're going, we're trying to do activities. Maybe your teacher is giving your child homework. So you got to put all that stuff in. You have to build in that routine. but allow your child to have a healthy balance at home between school and home. You know, if you're noticing that your child is really having a lot of homework, that elicits a conversation with your child's teacher, because is it an area where your child's struggling and that's why it's taking them so long? Or is it really just too much homework?
Right.
And that's a good information for the teacher to know and to be able to kind of ponder, just because, well, maybe she's getting a lot of communication from parents and you're just one extra parent who's letting that person know, my child is really struggling doing all of this homework because maybe it's too much.
Or maybe like what's going on in the classroom that there isn't enough time to do actual work. Like, are they just having fun and you're sending all the homework home for us, which I imagine is not it. But I do
Right.
recall when because my now third grader, as you were saying, those fifth graders hadn't had a normal year since second, right? So you and I have third graders. We've never had a normal year. So they don't even know what a normal year is because they started and ended all in that very first kindergarten year. So I think since that happened, and since then, every teacher has kind of like treated them like they're younger. So like in first grade, I would look in on her virtual, she did virtual all year, and the teacher was reading them stories. And I was like, well, that's what we did in kindergarten. So what happened to like the first grade? Are they ever going to read with you? And it just basically was a complete and then she would send stuff home for them to work on. And I'd say, did you even work on this? And she's like, no. I'm like, all right. So in class, when I look, she'd read you stories. One of the ones who is going to retire soon, maybe. And then, and she comes home and she has stuff that's hard, but she has no reason
But she
to know
didn't
how
do
to
that
do it.
at school.
Yeah. So what do I say to the teacher? Like, hey, could you teach her some of this? Like, is any of this homework related to what you're learning, or is this stuff like legitimately, like, are you expecting us to teach her this at home?
Right.
Or is this work that she's continuing that she was learning during the day?
That's the question that you say. So you would say, you know, and I know Madison. So I'm noticing that Madison is bringing home homework. Do you notice her struggling on the same skills in class? Because when she's at home, it takes her a really long time to do this activity. So is she also struggling with it at school? And the teacher should be able to know whether she's struggling with it at school, because it should be something that she sees them working on. Now,
Right.
To go back to your last statement, every teacher in elementary school K through 5 should be reading to your kids.
No, I agree with that. But I did ask, as we've moved up and now she's going to be in third, do you ever have the opportunity to read? And in second grade, she did, but in first grade, they never,
Gotcha.
well, it was also virtual.
It was also virtual.
Trying to find ways, but I was doing a pod with 3 first graders who had 3 teachers, and I was watching how each teacher did it. And some of the teachers were putting something up on the screen and asking the kids to read it out to the class.
Right.
And the other teacher was just playing YouTube videos. And her teacher was holding up books with pictures and reading them to them. So I'm not saying one was right or wrong.
Right.
But she was never having the opportunity to try and read herself out loud. So that's what I focused on at home, whether she told us to or not. I was like, just read, I guess.
And I will
keep
say,
reading.
I am fortunate that during virtual, I taught 4th and 5th graders. Hats off to teachers who were K1 and 2, because not only were they trying to figure out how to do what they normally do in a classroom, they're also trying to do that with children who do not have the computer skills that they needed to have in order to be able to do virtual school.
Right.
And truly, I mean, if you did not have a parent over top of you the entire time you were at school, which many did not because they couldn't, or you were at a facility where at least they made you sit in a chair, it's really difficult. So
especially in kindergarten, we realized they're like, okay, well, just type this. And I'm like, first of all, it was like, this is a mouse. And she's like, what? And I'm like, wow, we got to go all the way back on day one because she doesn't know necessarily all of the letters. She knows none of the punctuation marks or how to use them on a keyboard.
Right.
That was a rough go. Now she
Yes.
knows it real fast. I didn't know any of this stuff and going into third grade. So
Oh, I know. I mean, I look at, so my oldest is Caroline, and I mean, she's making Google slides and
I know
all these
trial
presentations,
by
and I'm just
fire.
like,
Exactly.
so Janine has a question. What type of information about, okay, so when the role of a parent, the other thing that's really important is at the beginning of the school year, you know your child best, and we get your child's folder, and typically, a teacher is not going to immediately go to your child's folder and like thumb through it. They're going to try and get a little bit of a relationship and feel your student out. The other reason they do that is because they want to give your child the benefit of the doubt and know that from one year to the next, you make a lot of growth, and that might be a different teacher that you had last year. And so how you how you behave with that teacher might be completely different than you behave with that other person. And you've had a whole summer to grow, right? So you come usually a little bit more mature, let's hope, right? So when you know that your child may be struggling academically, or let's say, for example, you've got something going on at home personally. So you're definitely going to want to share that information with your child's teacher. And you're probably not going to want to wait till November when we have parent teacher conferences. So that is perfectly fine to email the teacher and say, when you get a minute, I would really like to have a conversation with you just to talk about, Charlotte academically and some issues that we've had. Just wanted to fill you in on some things at home. And let me know when is a good time to talk. The one thing that I really love though about what we have gotten from, virtual is that I had so many of my parent teacher conferences on virtually like this, whether it was Zoom or Teams.
Mhm.
And so this allowed me to be able to have a one-on-one conversation with people, not via the phone, but actually like seeing their face and feeling like it was a true conversation. And it really just, but they didn't have to come all the way to the school and then try and they didn't have to worry about
Right.
childcare because they could still be at home when, somebody was entertained by the iPad or the TV, or maybe they were reading a book, so this is another great way for you to be able to communicate with your teacher. Can we have a quick Zoom? So some of the things that you might want to share, like during kindergarten for my oldest, my mother-in-law was very sick. And we knew that she did not have very long. And so this was taking a very large toll on my oldest daughter, who, was going off to kindergarten and things were supposed to be great. But by September, things did not look so good. And so, we really, I had to communicate this with my daughter's teacher. And so I emailed regularly because every week it was something new. We were good, we were bad. We were good, we were bad. And so I had to let her know, like, just wanted to keep you up to date. Things are not going well. It's getting close to the end. This is really affecting Caroline. If you happen to notice that she's a little sad, or maybe she's a little angry at times where you wouldn't expect her to be angry, can you let me know so that we can talk to her about it at home? And just wanted to let you know what's going on, because maybe she needs a little bit of an extra hug or a pat on the back. And her teacher was so open to that communication, because that's important. It's important for us to know that something is going on in your home. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to give us the full detail, because obviously it's personal.
Right.
But if there's a divorce going on, let us know. Because especially one thing that we need to know is that maybe your child's going back and forth between homes. And so maybe that's why the folder's not coming home, or maybe that's why it takes a little bit longer. Be upfront and honest with your child's teacher and let them know, like, hey, so we have a switch in the middle of the week. It's on Wednesday. So I know the folder comes home on Tuesday, but then they don't go to their dad's house until Wednesday. And so it's kind of hard. So is it okay if we turn the folder in on Friday? Of course. But again, you've communicated that with me. Each child has a diverse and different home than the kid sitting next to them. Maybe you have a home with two moms, two dads, you're a single parent, you're a biracial family. I mean, there's lots of things that it's okay to let us know these things. Now, granted, we typically figure it out within the first week or so, because the first week of school, everyone's talking about themselves and learning about how different everyone is, but how similar we are in the same way. But if you know that that is something that is unique to your family, let your teacher know.
Right.
It's great to let us know too, because, there are different holidays that get celebrated. I know one for me, like I always send out an informational sheet to kind of let me know, like who's your, contact information and things like that. But I like to know what holidays you celebrate, because the other thing too is that helps me to allow other people to know what people celebrate and embrace that diversity in your classroom,
Yeah.
right? And allow your students to share. I mean, I had a lot of students who celebrated different holidays. And so when those holidays would come up, I would give them time in class to talk about that holiday and share it with their classmates, because
Right.
many times they were missing school for religious holidays. And then, of course, is so-and-so out because they have COVID? Well, no, they're
Yeah.
not out because they have COVID.
Right.
They're not out because remember they told us they were going to be out because they're
Maybe they're-
celebrating.
Yeah, they're celebrating
hol-
something that not everyone understands, right?
That's exactly right. Because even though we might have certain times during the year where certain holidays are celebrated for different cultures, not we don't get out of school for every single one of them.
Right.
So it's important.
And then I have another question from Janine real
Yeah.
quick. And then we got to wrap up.
Okay.
Are there other good, are there others within the school that are good resources to contact that we aren't bothering a teacher with trivial questions?
So, if you feel like there's a social emotional issue, your school guidance counselor is always a great start. If you feel like there is a need for medical assistance, contact the school nurse. But most of the time, I would say that the child's teacher is your first line of defense, really, because there are going to be programs that your student's teacher are going to know about. And we have teams within the school. So, once a month or every other week, depending on whatever your school's calendar is, those teams come together and you can say, I have a student, they're dealing with such and such. What programs can I put that child into? And then that whole team can really bring all of their resources and then give those to you very quickly. So again, I think the best person to talk to first is your child's teacher. So before we do wrap up, I wanted to just quickly kind of go over and break down the elementary school grades on like what a parent and a child can be responsible for to help make sure that their 2/3 are successful, right? So a kindergarten first grader, they're pretty much going to be responsible for a folder. So the folder is going to come home, specific day. You're going to want to sit down with your kindergarten or first grader and create a routine, have a specific place where their backpack goes. Make sure that they're taking all of their stuff out that needs to come out of that backpack and be put into specific places at home. That will help prevent. I mean, I know that I've had parents who work night shift, and so their child has to put it on the kitchen table because their parent's not there when they go to bed, right? The other parent's there or a babysitter. So they put it on the table, they know where to put it. And even kindergartners can do this. The parent signs it and the next morning they put it in the backpack, right? So it's all done. But always checking that backpack. One other thing that I've learned is a good rule of thumb. Always on the breaks, wash your child's backpack. I know that sounds weird, but it is just one of those things. During winter break and during spring break, wash your kid's backpack. You'd be amazed. But always first come to the teacher. And the other thing is important to tell your kindergarten first grader, and this really applies to all grades, always go to the teacher or the adult that's there. Because if something happens, they are the first person that will be able to help that child. If your child waits till they get home, whether it's a bus issue, a cafeteria issue, recess, classroom, at that point, 24 hours later, so much has happened that it's going to be very difficult to be able to solve the situation. So if they can, as much as they can, if they can share with their teacher before they leave for the school day, that's best. And for a kindergartner or first grader, you're looking at about 30 minutes of homework. That's if your child's teacher gives homework. A lot of us are steering away from homework. So second, third grader, they're going to be responsible for that folder. Again, you've already set up that routine with them. They possibly have an agenda. Some schools provide agendas, some schools make you buy it. But go ahead and continue to check the folder. It's still important for the parent to check the folder for a second and third grader. Don't just put that on them. Same routine, checking it along the way, checking for homework that might need to be completed. One thing that especially once your child's a reader, I think that it's really important that if they're given an agenda, every once in a while, write a note in your child's agenda. You could even do it every day. Like, have a great day. Good luck on your spelling test. I can't wait to see you after school today. Oh, it's Wednesday. We're going to go to Sweet Frog. It's No Way Wednesday. Like little things like that, just to let them know. Because the other thing about writing a note in your child's agenda is that it becomes a little bit more of a useful tool for them because it's something they look forward to. And then maybe take it out of their desk and, open it up every once in a while. Begin setting up a calendar and reviewing it for quizzes and tests. I think first graders, I know they get quizzes and tests and stuff like that, but I don't know that a first grader is going to be the type of person. You're going to really have to monitor that a little bit more, right? But I think by the time second, third graders, they've got a really good understanding of calendar. They've reviewed it in kindergarten, first grade. So setting that up, study with them. I think one of the best ways to study with a second or third grader is to start with, well, what do you know? And let them tell you what they know about the subject. And if they can hit every point on your little study guide, you're done. You don't need to study anymore. And I would say for a second or third grader, homework maybe 45 minutes. And that really should include the time that they read as well, independently or with you. A fourth or fifth grader, about 1 hour, depending on the rigor of their program, it could be an hour and a half, but monitor that because sometimes I find that they just play around on the computers that they have. And it really shouldn't take them as long as they say it does. Most will continue to have a take-home folder, even in the upper grades. Agendas are very important during this time. It'll allow them to set short and long-term goals. I will say one thing that I have noticed that if your child's agenda does not have a large calendar in it, like for the whole month, either print one out for them or get one for them, because it really does allow them to map out everything and see like just how long it's going to take them to do something. Take advantage of setting up an online calendar in the platform that they provide. Your child's teacher is probably going to do that, but just in case. And my last thing for a fourth or fifth grader, if they have an online grade book and you're checking it in second and third grade, it's time for your student to start checking their own grades. Checking it once a week, set a day, maybe that they kind of look at their grades. Because ultimately, let's say, Charlotte comes home with a 45 and you see it in the grade book before she even gets home off the bus. Immediately, you want to email the teacher and go, why did Charlotte get a 45 on that? Why don't you let Charlotte get home and tell you why she got a 45? That's allowing your child to be responsible for their success. Hey, why did you get a 45? Well, do you remember I had that soccer game the night before and I really didn't get to study very much? Or I left my notebook at home. There's things that you can say. Or maybe they'll say, that was on the test, but we never went over it in class. And then you can have that conversation with the teacher. So-and-so said this, because you can look in and go, oh, that's an us problem. We can fix that. But if it's we need some help from the teacher. Maybe you need a tutor. Maybe you need a little extra help on doing this at home. Then that lets you know. So definitely get your kid by the fourth or fifth grade checking their own grades, because truly they're the ones doing all the work. So the 45 or the 50, you're not going to see a 40 or a 550 because we really can't put that low of a grade in the grade book. But when you start to see lower grades, ask them first, because they're the ones who did the work and they should be able to tell you pretty easily why. I know you said we were wrapping up. Are there any other questions? I feel like I talked a mile a minute.
No, that was amazing. Let me see other questions we had. The one I saw. And you might have mentioned this way back, but how often, so like I sometimes didn't hear from the teacher at all. So how often should I be trying to check in with the teacher if it's the teacher that's not communicating a lot, perhaps?
So if the teacher's not communicating a lot, as in like he or she is giving like big overviews of of what's going on in the classroom, you know, I would check in and say, like, not necessarily once a week, but maybe every 2 weeks, but you should be getting a decent amount of communication from your child's teacher, whether it's from the school. Like, I know my child's school, the teachers are supposed to send her information, the principal, and then the principal disseminates it to all of us in one big place. So I don't get a lot of emails from my child's individual teacher because I really focus on that. Because they embed their newsletters and what they're learning inside that big email from the principal. So if you feel like you don't know what's going on overall in your child's day, I would check in with that teacher at least once a week, because that will also let that teacher know, like, okay, maybe I'm not giving my parents enough information, and maybe that's why I'm getting so many of these emails.
Yeah.
And I would be honest and say, hey, I'm not really getting a lot of info, you know, especially if you have a younger kid. You know, Charlotte's not really bringing home a lot of information, and I feel like I'm missing some important dates, like some tests and things like that. Is there a place where I'm supposed to be getting this information? Because I'm not quite sure that I'm seeing it. You know, maybe they have the wrong email, right? So, but I feel like teachers are pretty much expected to be sending out a weekly or monthly newsletter. So if you feel like you're not informed at least once a month on everything that's going on, SOL content, dates for classroom and school activities, then I would definitely reach out, because you need to know that. The only way for you to help your child's teacher is for you to be well informed and know what's going on in your child's day. I mean, you don't need to necessarily know, like, at 12:15 they're sitting down and doing reading groups, but you probably will know that. And that's also helpful to know that, because, well, what if you have to do a dentist appointment real quick? It's probably so much easier to take your kid out at lunch or recess or resource so that they don't miss math or reading or content.
Great.
So,
Well, okay. Well, that was amazing. I know you gave us like years and years of information in like the tiniest thing.
sorry about that.
No, sorry, we can't give you more time. So I just want to say thank you again. We will have a fall webinar series coming up. If there's anything you'd like to learn more about, let us know. If there's any questions that you have for Charlotte, let us know. You can go to homeworkforkids.com. You can email us at info@homeworkforkids.com. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Homework for Kids LLC. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we are currently offering a 7-day free parent trial to Homework for Kids. You can go in there and look around. And just to remind you all, we offer, right now we have about 230 teachers, tutors, educators signed up, and you can pay just $10 a month to have access to our entire database, search through all of them, email all of them, talk to them, see who might be the best fit for your kid. You will pay them directly the rate that they set up, but that $10 a month will give you access to our site, to our content, and we will donate up to half of that a month to charities that support kids who need additional educational assistance and are not able to afford so, because we really do believe that every kid deserves quality education. So thank you, Charlotte. Good luck with the new school year. And thank you, everyone. And I hope you have a great start of the school year.